Story 1. Tracy Pittman Kegley disappeared from Elmore County, Alabama, in 1998. Her car was found parked on the side of the road with her very young daughter still inside and unharmed. Tracy has never been found, and no arrests have been made. Story 2. The Beaumont children disappeared from Glenelg Beach, Adelaide, on Australia Day 1966. Jane, 10, Arna, 8, and Grant, 5. Story 3. Brandon Swanson disappeared while on the phone with his parents. Story 4. I am fascinated by the disappearances of people in the Smoky Mountains. I live about 15 minutes from the area, and I'm very interested in the cases. My wife's cousin was one of the missing. Story 5. A lady friend of mine disappeared in the San Francisco Bay Area in the mid-1980s during a time when a number of serial killers were active. She had been arrested for driving under the influence, and her car was impounded. She was released the next day and was never seen again. Her purse, with everything still in it, including a couple of $100s, mysteriously appeared on her front porch the next day, across the bay from the jail, even though her address was not on her driver's license or on any item in the purse. We still miss her 40 years later. Story 6. The Asha Degree case is especially upsetting to me. Terrence Woods Jr. was working on a television show. As they were wrapping up, he suddenly ran as if he were being chased and was never seen again. Jason Jalkowski was 19 years old. He was last seen at 10:45 a.m., walking to meet a ride to take him to work. He never made it and was never seen again. Story 7. Michael Wayne Dunahee was born on May 12, 1986, and disappeared on March 24, 1991. He is a Canadian child who went missing from the playground at Blanchard Elementary School in Victoria, British Columbia, and has never been seen since. He was last seen that day at about 12:30 p.m. on the playground while his mother, Crystal Dunahee, participated in a women's flag football practice and his father watched as a spectator. Although he vanished only a short distance from his parents, no witnesses to his disappearance have been identified. Story 8. Ray Gricker, the district attorney from central Pennsylvania, had his laptop found smashed in a river, but he himself was never found. Was it suicide? Was he murdered because of his work as a prosecutor? Or is he still alive and living under another name? Story 9. Bryce Laspiza was driving home from college and was in communication with his parents. He would sometimes pull off somewhere and sit for hours, or end up in places far from his home. He kept telling his parents that everything was fine. The day after they had spoken to him several times and tried to get him to come home, his car was found overturned in a ravine with no sign of him. He has not been seen or heard from since. Story 10. Molly Bish. It was not just something we read about. It happened one town over. So sad. After they found her remains and held the service at the church, her father sat in the pews all night so she would not have to be alone. Story 11. Jonathan Hong has been missing for 245 days. He is a 22-year-old autistic man. His family describes his abilities as those of a 9 or 10-year-old. He disappeared from his home in Arlington, Washington, between 7:30 p.m. and 6:30 a.m. There is no footage from neighbors showing his departure and no reports of an unfamiliar vehicle in the cul-de-sac that night. The cul-de-sac has only one entrance, which would make a stranger's presence noticeable. He left behind all of his belongings, including comfort items to which he was strongly attached and would be unlikely to leave behind voluntarily. About 3 months later, he was seen about 40 miles away on 3 separate video doorbell cameras in a Kirkland neighborhood after dark. He appeared clean and visibly unharmed but confused. That sighting gave his family and the many people searching for him hope, but he has not been seen since. I think about Jonathan all the time. I keep a lookout for him in my own town even though it is far from Arlington and Kirkland. I hope he is safe and that his case is resolved soon. Story 12. Andrew Gosden was a 14-year-old boy who bought a one-way ticket to London and was never seen again. Story 13. I just want to know what happened to the Yuba County Five. I know nearly all of the bodies were found, but why were they out there? Why did they not eat the food? Why did they stay for so long without trying to find help? What happened? Story 14. Rihanna Barrow was 12 years old and lived in a suburban house in South Australia. She disappeared in October 1992. Many Australians think of the Beaumont children case, but police were aware of significant child sexual offender activity at the time. Even if particulars are unknown, it is widely suspected the Beaumont children were targeted by one or more offenders. Rihanna appeared to vanish into thin air. She was home alone, left to go to a local shop, and was seen at the shop and on her way home. The item she purchased was on her kitchen table. But when her mother arrived home, the front door was locked and Rihanna was gone. There has never been an official suspect and no information made public. Her body was never discovered, and she is presumed dead. Private investigators have conjectured that she was seen by a man now convicted of other crimes, including rape and murder, who followed her to her house and abducted her. There was plausible evidence he could have been in the general area, and Rihanna, although only 12, matched his victim profile and modus operandi. While retired South Australia police detectives have publicly stated they believe a local person is responsible, the lack of information suggests she may have been abducted by someone unknown to her. A case of being in the wrong place at the wrong time. On the day she disappeared, a bus strike prevented her from reaching her intended destination. She had planned to meet her mother for lunch at a larger shopping center and only went to the local shop because of the strike. Story 15. The disappearance of Brian Schaefer has become a personal interest of mine. He was a medical student who vanished from a Columbus bar in 2006, seemingly without ever leaving the building, and has not been seen since. Recommended podcast, Trace Evidence Episode 24, The Disappearance of Brian Schaefer. Story 16. Judy Smith was last seen in Philadelphia before her body was found in North Carolina. Story 17. 2 months ago in Australia, 4-year-old Gus Lamont went missing. He was playing outside when his grandmother checked on him at 5 p.m., and by 5:30 p.m. he was gone without a trace. I can't get over that they haven't found any clues. Story 18. Australian Prime Minister Harold Holt went swimming as he did every day. One day he never returned. No trace of him was ever found. He had simply disappeared. A swimming pool was named after him. Story 19. The events that have always lingered in my mind include the disappearance of the lighthouse keepers on the Flannan Islands, the disappearance of Malaysia Airlines Flight 370, and the hijacking by the man known as D.B. Cooper. Each one is like a different nightmare. Story 20. Kenny Veach was an avid hiker in Nevada and ran a YouTube channel. He claimed to have found a strange cave shaped like the letter M that began vibrating when he entered. He recorded one final video blog before returning to search for it, but he vanished during the attempt. Story 21. 30 years ago, a 17-year-old boy staying at our family cabin disappeared while hunting and was never found. He was at the cabin with a couple of my siblings and a few cousins and left early. The National Guard spent weeks looking for him. There are still marks on the trees showing they searched the area. It was devastating. Story 22. Darren Rainey was an incarcerated person who was locked in a shower whose temperature was controlled from outside. He was scalded to death while screaming to be let out. This facility was under my employer's purview early in my career. I am being intentionally vague because we were there conducting unrelated data collection and research and analysis on prison conditions. After he was essentially burned alive, his body went missing and no one could intervene to order an independent autopsy, because inside a prison, if authorities wish to shut you out, things go dark. It was a state facility, so even federal authorities could not gain access. Something similar happened to a young man in Fulton County Jail who was infested with insects that fed on him, causing open skin lesions and infection that led to his death. We tried to obtain custody of the remains because his family understandably wanted an independent autopsy. They eventually obtained an autopsy and were awarded a couple $1 million. It is terrifying when something illegal or abusive occurs in a jail or prison because everything can go dark. Many facilities use unmarked graves, and deaths involving human rights abuses or foul play can be covered up. The Darren Rainey case still keeps me up at night. I was about 24 at the time and it felt very fresh. People disappear from jails, psychiatric institutions, and other facilities all the time, with families and independent parties left completely helpless. Story 23. Michaela Bali from Yorkton, Saskatchewan, went missing approximately 10 years ago. There are several clear surveillance videos from before she disappeared. Story 24. Dennis Martin. A child stepped out of his father's line of sight for about a minute during a camping trip and then disappeared. That freaked me out. Story 25. The Hinterkaifeck murders might not be the eeriest, but they are definitely extremely creepy. Story 26. Kristen Smart disappeared in 1996. I was 11 and living on the Central Coast. The disappearance of a college student walking home from a party was eerie and unexpected in a small town. Her body has never been found, which is not hard to believe because there are many secluded areas on the Central Coast where a body could be hidden. Story 27. Kiara Coles, a United States Postal Service worker, was about 3 months pregnant, I believe. She vanished suddenly. It has been many years. I have a Google alert set in case anything comes up. Story 28. The disappearance of Brandon Swanson and Emma Filipoff and the murder of Missy Beavers. I would give anything to get those cases solved for their families and for my own peace of mind. I think about them often. Emma's and Missy's cases frustrate me so much because the suspects in each case were on camera but have never been caught. Story 29. Cave diver Ben McDaniels is missing in Vortex Springs, Florida. The search for his body resulted in the death of another cave diver. That diver was recovered, but McDaniels' body has not been found. Story 30. Lars Mittank disappeared after running out of the airport into the woods. He was never heard from again. Story 31. Brianna Maitland disappeared after leaving her job. Her car was found parked inside an abandoned house. She has been missing since then. Story 32. Michael Negretti is the brother of a classmate of mine. My close friend at the time was dating someone in his brother's friend group, so I was present during the strange, tragic limbo that followed as days turned into weeks. I think about it sometimes and hope for updates and closure for the family. Story 33. Dr. Sneha and Philip lived near the Twin Towers and disappeared just before the September 11, 2001 attacks. She was declared a victim of those attacks in 2008, but there is controversy surrounding her disappearance and whether she was actually a victim. Story 34. Claudia Lawrence disappeared into thin air. There are no official suspects, and various disturbing rumors have circulated. Her house has been empty for over 15 years and has been broken into multiple times, but the intrusions are not obvious from outside. The only reason anyone knows someone has been inside is that small items are occasionally moved. Story 35. The most heartbreaking case is Andrew Gosden, a boy who looked just like my son. I really hope his parents find closure. Another eyebrow-raising case is Bum Farto, although it is not very eerie. Where is Bum Farto? Story 36. The disappearance of the Sodder children is one I think about way too often. Story 37. There have been many similar cases over the decades, but this one is recent. They believe he may still come home, unfortunately. Word is that the police officer hid the body where no one would find it and is not talking. Story 38. In 1985, a 15-year-old girl was at a fair and told her friends she would be right back. No one saw her again. A serial killer later confessed that she was one of his victims, but there was no evidence linking him to her disappearance. Kim Amaro. Story 39. Daniel Robinson. He did not simply walk off into the desert. The data from his Jeep shows the scene was staged. Someone else drove it into a ravine where it was found, even if he had been experiencing mental health problems. Story 40. Maura Murray, a student at the University of Massachusetts Amherst, drained her bank account, lied to her professors about a family member's death, and disappeared. Story 41. Deborah Rosick vanished shortly before a scheduled cesarean section to deliver her twins. It appears she was murdered. Where did her body and the bodies of her twins go? Story 42. Samantha Sayers. There are no updates that I know of and she has disappeared. Story 43. Lois Hannah. A young woman went missing after a community dance in a small Ontario town. There is a strong possibility it was Paul Bernardo who was a suspect. A college friend who had lost her purse at that dance received a call from the Royal Canadian Mounted Police a few years later. The officer said they had found her purse. She replied that she had already replaced everything and there was no need to worry. The officer then said the purse had been found in Bernardo's closet. Story 44. Ryan Stucke is missing from Sun Peaks. He left a party with friends and was never seen again. His family hopes for closure. Story 45. Brandon Swanson was on the phone with his parents, and then he was gone. Story 46. Frederick Valentik. Not the most eerie case, but eerie nonetheless. On October 21, 1978, he disappeared while on a training flight in a Cessna 182L from Moorabbin Airport to King Island. Just before radio contact was lost, Valentik reported a strange, unidentified aircraft hovering above him, described as a large, brightly lit object with a shiny metal surface and a green light. He also reported engine problems. His transmission ended with a metallic scraping sound, and neither he nor his plane were ever found. An extensive search found no trace of the aircraft or the pilot. Story 47. Scott Cleeschult, from St. Charles, Missouri, was 9 years old and grew up building elaborate tunnels and caves with friends and neighborhood children. The area was undeveloped because of regular flooding from the Missouri River and other sources. A powerful thunderstorm coincided with his disappearance, and it was believed a tunnel or cave had collapsed while he was inside. Search teams dug through the ground but found no trace. Whenever the area was developed, the community held its breath. There was even a Reddit mystery in which an anonymous user confessed to murdering Scott in one of the caves when they were a child. It was not until the 2010s that the St. Charles Police Department said they believed Scott's disappearance was an abduction. Story 48. The Kieran Horman case is tragic. It is shocking that a child could disappear from school like that. Many schools now have enhanced safety protocols. Story 49. In my hometown in 1991, Michael Dunahy disappeared from a playground at age 4. His parents were there, as were many other people. No one saw anything. To this day, I think about him and wonder if we will ever know the truth. Story 50. Tara Calico of Rio Communities, New Mexico disappeared while on a bicycle ride. Bicycle parts and a Walkman were found in the brush near the highway. Years later, a photograph that may show her in captivity was found in Florida. Story 51. Vishal Mehrotra went missing on the day of the royal wedding and was never seen again. Many people paid little attention because they were focused on the wedding, and possibly because of bias against his ethnicity. Some remains were found buried on a farm and were linked to a known child abuser. Vishal's father died without ever knowing his son's fate. It is heartbreaking. Story 52. Sky Metalwala. His mother said her car had run out of gas, which was not true, so she left Sky, age 3, and his older sister alone in the car while she said she was going to get gas. He has never been seen again. His mother refused to cooperate with the police, and the police did not take action to compel her to talk. They did not arrest her for impeding the investigation or for lying to them. Nothing was done. It has been 16 years. I hope he was sent to live with relatives outside the country. Story 53. Amberly Cruikshank, from my country, went missing from a family gathering in New Zealand in 1992 when she was 2.5 years old. Investigators have ruled out that she drowned in the nearby lake or died in an accident, and no body has ever been found. Someone who was there that day knows what happened and has never come forward or been identified. It happened very close to where my cousins grew up, and I think about it often. Realistically, I think her mother probably knows what happened and is covering for someone. The likelihood that Amberly will never get justice is tragic. Story 54. Jeanette Tate disappeared while on her paper round in 1978. Her bicycle was found with her newspapers scattered around it, but her body has never been recovered. Robert Black, a convicted child killer, is strongly believed to have been responsible for her disappearance, although this has never been proven. I was a few years younger than her, And the case unsettled me, especially because my sister was a similar age and had a paper round. Story 55. My cake from my 19th birthday disappeared. None of my roommates knew what had happened to it while I was at work. It simply vanished from our shared refrigerator. I never even got a bite. Story 56. Johnny Gosh. The rabbit holes surrounding this case are wild. Story 57. I do not know if I would call this eerie, but it hit close to home. Crystal Arensdorf was either the daughter or the stepdaughter of a man who went to my church and lived in the same apartment complex as my father. They also worked at the same factory. On July 4, 2001, she was at a bar in Dubuque, Iowa, and got into an argument on the phone with her boyfriend. She left on her own in the early hours of the morning and vanished. The boyfriend was an immediate suspect because of the argument and because he moved on almost immediately. He got a new girlfriend and even tried to sell some of Crystal's belongings. That line of investigation petered out. A group of bikers at the bar that night raised suspicion, but they left for Wisconsin and refused to cooperate. The bar staff also refused to cooperate. Ultimately, while suspicion remains on the bikers, there are no solid leads, and over the years other theories have come and gone about what happened to her. The man who lived in my father's apartment went on vacation to Iowa to meet up and had planned to go to Six Flags, not knowing that by the time he left she was already missing. My father told me he found out when the man returned a few days later. He pulled into the parking area beside my father's apartment early in the morning, screaming my father's name and holding a missing person poster out his car window, shouting, "They took her! They took her!" We went around the area handing out posters because our town is connected to the interstate. There was a girl here named Crystal who looked a lot like her, but it was not her. It was a creepy experience for that girl, my father, and the man who thought she might be the missing Crystal. Story 58. Harold Holt, the Australian Prime Minister, went for a swim in the ocean and was never seen again. Story 59. Joseph Forscrater, a New York Supreme Court justice who disappeared on August 6, 1930, walked out of a Manhattan restaurant and vanished. He remains missing to this day. Story 60. Julie Cutler. Her car was found awash in the surf early one morning at Cotslow Beach in Western Australia. She had been at a work function at the Parmelia Hilton in Perth, Western Australia. She was seen leaving the venue after saying farewell to her work friends on June 22, 1998. Her body has never been found. Story 61. On October 21, 1978, pilot Frederick Valentik reported to Melbourne Air Traffic Control that a strange aircraft with 4 bright lights was above his plane. His last words before radio contact were, "It's hovering and it's not an aircraft." Valentik and his aircraft were never found despite extensive air and sea searches. Those final words still make my hair stand on end. Story 62. Lars Mittank. This is so eerie because it could have been me. I have psychosis. Imagining that someone experienced that in a foreign country, most likely had a psychotic attack though it is not confirmed, and never returned home is very frightening to me. Story 63. It is widely believed that the teenage Ted Bundy killed and Marie Burr, but this has never been confirmed. Story 64. Jennifer Kesse. Jody Hewson-Trutt. Amy Rowe Bechtel. Story 65. It is the cases in which people vanish from seemingly secure locations, such as the Brian Schaefer case, that really unsettle me. The Great Smoky Mountains disappearance and the Brandon Swanson case are also chilling reminders of how quickly things can go wrong. Story 66. The disappearance of Cleomedes. Cleomedes was a boxer representing the island of Astypalia at the Olympic Games and was favored to win. He accidentally killed his opponent, Iccus, with an illegal blow and was disqualified, bringing shame on his island. The disgrace broke his mind. To prove his strength, he destroyed the supporting pillars of a boxing school, either by striking them with his fists or by pulling them down. About 60 students and teachers were killed, and their families sought Cleomedes' blood. He was chased through the streets and took refuge in a temple of Athena, hiding inside a large chest and holding it closed while whimpering. The families fetched axes and hacked the chest open. When it was torn apart, Cleomedes was gone. He had vanished in full view of everyone. The oracle of Delphi was asked what had happened and answered, Ultimus Hierum Cleomedes Astypalos, which was taken to mean, the line of heroes ends with Cleomedes of Astypalia. He was worshipped as a demigod for about 7 centuries. Story 67. Bradford Bishop was a high-level federal employee at the United States Department of State. One day he came home early from work, killed his entire family, and left with the family dog. Authorities later found his car in western North Carolina. Bishop has not been seen since. There were alleged sightings in various countries, but none were confirmed. He is likely long gone. Story 68. Malaysia Airlines flight MH370, a Boeing 777, disappeared without a trace, and several countries with advanced radar systems have remained silent. Story 69. Tracy Crow always gets me. It happened 15 minutes from where I live. Super eerie. Story 70. Sue Roop, from Bent Tree, West Virginia, had 3 children and was expecting an insurance claim. She disappeared and was never seen again. She would not have just walked away. Story 71. James Tetford took a bus ride, but when it reached his stop he was no longer on board. Nobody saw him get off at a previous stop. Story 72. Kjell Johansson, 16, Jan-Olof Dahlsjö, 21, and Gay Roger Carlson, 22, disappeared on July 29, 1965, and have never been seen since. Also that day in the same town, 18-year-old Hibner Lundqvist left his family's summer cottage and, by unknown means, reached Gothenburg train station, where he mailed a postcard to his parents saying he intended to hitchhike to Lyskill. Unlike the others, he was reported seen in Adelaide in 1966 and in Singapore in 1968. The 3 had left Café Martin in Gothenburg, Sweden, in Dahlsjö's 1944 midnight blue Volvo passenger car. Coincidentally or not, a bank in the city's neighborhood of Gamelstaden was robbed the same day. The robbers planned a convoluted escape route involving wetsuits and a river. The media dubbed the robbery Grodmønstrenet. The police have since rejected any connection between the robbery and the disappearances. Story 73. Cameron Robbins' disappearance was terrifying. He was lost at sea after jumping from a booze cruise in Nassau at night. Considering what likely happened in the water is horrifying. Story 74. Karen Wilson and Suzanne Lyell are in Albany, New York. They are college students just living their lives. Story 75. Natalie Holloway was 18 years old when she went on a school trip to Aruba and did not return to the United States. She went missing on May 30, 2005. Story 76. In ancient times, hundreds of years before the dawn of history, a strange race of people lived, the Druids. No one knows who they were or what they did, but their legacy remains hewn into the living rock of Stonehenge. Story 77. D. B. Cooper, the man who jumped out of a plane with money and vanished. Story 78. I once joked that I had lost my mind. The disappearance of those children from Mexico struck me as eerie. The ones the coyotes left in the desert. Story 79. I would like to know what happened to the girl who was abducted in California. I think it happened in 2020. There was a video from a man's house showing her being forced into a van at night. Her screams were terrifying. I remember someone else was with the man filming and told him to call emergency services, but he said he was recording. Does anyone know where I can find the video or get an update on it? Story 80. Bradley Dale Ross of Fort Wayne, Indiana, was in a car accident and was never seen again. Martin Roberts of Boone, North Carolina, boarded a bus and was never seen again. Stacy Colbert of Columbus, Ohio, disappeared from her apartment one night. Her body was found about 5 years later, but there is no explanation for what happened to her. Story 81. It's the Valentic disappearance for me. Frederick Valentic was an Australian pilot who disappeared during a flight in 1978. The eeriest part for me is reading the official transcripts of his communications with air traffic control in the moments before he vanished. Search online for the Valentic disappearance transcripts to read them. Story 82. I grew up in a small town in upstate South Carolina. A classmate, Brooke Henson, disappeared on July 4, 1999. She had hosted a party earlier that night, and after an argument with her boyfriend, she walked to a nearby gas station to buy cigarettes. She has never been found. Story 83. Barbara Strakova went missing in Costa Rica. No arrests have been made, despite plenty of evidence, and she has never been found. There is a 3-part Crime Watch daily segment about her and several blogs online. Story 84. Terrence Williams, Michelle Parker, Springfield 3, Jennifer Kess, Jolene Cummings, Colony of Roanoke. Story 85. Nothing about Tom Messick's disappearance makes any sense, at least to me. Story 86. Susie Lampla is a case that has stuck with me. She was a London estate agent who disappeared in broad daylight on a Monday lunchtime in 1986. The only serious clue was an appointment in her diary to show a man around a house, a routine engagement. The police focused on John Cannon, who died in prison a year ago. He was jailed in 1989 for other violent crimes against women, but his involvement in Susie's disappearance was never proven. There are many rabbit holes leading in different directions, and I do not think it will ever be completely solved. Her body has never been found, and she was declared dead in 1993. Story 87. Suzanne Lyle was a clean-cut, disciplined college sophomore who disappeared between the mall where she worked and her dormitory at the University at Albany in Albany, New York. On March 2, 1998, she left work at about 9 o'clock in the evening and walked out the employee exit at the back of the mall to catch a bus to campus a few miles away. A few people reported seeing her on the bus, but she never arrived at her dormitory suite by the university bus stop. The following afternoon, her automated teller machine card may have been used by a tall man wearing Amish-style clothing, according to a witness at the cash register. The cash register was on camera, but the automated teller machine was not. Her old employee identification badge was found near the university bus stop in a visitor parking lot. No trace or additional evidence has ever been found. Story 88. Roxanne Paltaff, Austin, Texas, 2006. Much beloved eldest sibling of a large family. I would like her family to have real answers. She was an awesome human being. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.